What is going on, guys? This is Jake at That Fit Friend, and today we're going to be talking really quickly about heel slip, what it is, why it can be problematic for your training, and how to navigate around it. So now, what is heel slip? So heel slip is when the heel of your foot pops out or moves around in the boot of your shoe. A lot of times this will resemble the heel actually coming out of the boot, and then you have to awkwardly readjust when you're training, walking, running, etc. And it's incredibly frustrating and annoying. And there are different levels of heel slip in regard to how severe it actually is. Sometimes it's just enough to cause a little bit of friction on the Achilles and result in blistering, while other times it can have your heel fully popping out of your shoe. Regardless, heel slip is obviously less than ideal no matter the activity you're doing. And now let's quickly discuss why is it that problematic. So two key reasons why heel slip can be problematic is number one, blisters. We've all had blisters up and down our Achilles before, and more than likely you've definitely had to deal with this in your training past. Whether it was just a shoe you were wearing for walking, running, or training in, dealing with blisters is incredibly frustrating, and anytime you have the heel creating a bunch of friction in your shoe, you're not only going to stain the internal portion of the shoe, but you're also going to have a blister that's constantly aggravated. So the first reason is blisters. The second reason is that heel slip can actually hinder your performance. Let's say you're doing a box jump in a CrossFit workout and you're doing a lot of jumps, you're doing, let's say, burpee jump overs. You can actually have your heel pop out mid jump, which will then cause you to almost have an unstable base to land on. And if your shoe is flopping on and off during that style of training, then it's obviously less than ideal for you to, number one, keep your pace, but number two, trust that your shoes are going to remain on your feet and be stable enough for you in your training. So two reasons why heel slip stinks is number one, blisters, and number two, it can cause your performance to dip. Now, let's talk about what can physically cause heel slip with your shoes. So heel slip can generally occur due to two reasons. Number one is that your shoe does not fit your foot properly. So let's say there's too much length in the toe box and you're sliding forward. If this is happening to you, whether it's in walking, running, or whether you're training, your heel is going to be way more prone to pop out because there's going to be more room in the boot of your shoe. The second reason is that you may just have a foot anatomy that doesn't align with something like a low profile model. So the Nike Metcon line, this is a primo example of a training shoe that folks can experience heel slip in, and that's because the Metcon line has a very low profile construction back here on the boot. So when we're plantar flexing, we're really driving into the ground and we're putting a lot of force into the shoe in regard to how it's bending and how we're moving. We can have that heel pop out if our foot anatomy doesn't align with this style of shoe and how it fits. So there are a couple different reasons why heel slip can happen, but generally it's because number one, your shoes do not fit your feet correctly in regard to length or even width if you're just sliding around way too much in your shoe. And number two, you may not have the foot anatomy that aligns with certain lasts. And this is a great example of your foot anatomy not aligning with a low profile construction shoe. So now let's talk about navigating around heel slip. If you're experiencing it, what should you do? So I have two lacing styles that you can experiment with. Those are time-stamped and we're going to talk about them in just a second. But three quick tips out of the gate is number one, going to get your foot properly sized, whether it be at a running store or like a Dick's, etc., using their tools. I think at times some of us can just accept that we're a certain size and then we don't measure anymore, but our anatomy can change slightly, especially as we dive into certain forms of training, as we wear different types of footwear. So it's always a good idea to keep a constant idea of what your correct shoe size is. The second tip is to be conscious of your sock choice. So if you have a shoe that just slightly is off with its sizing, wearing thicker socks can be a nice way of mitigating this. Granted, it's kind of like a short-term Band-Aid fix, but hopefully as you break in that model, you will limit any form of friction and blisters. So wearing thicker socks right out of the gate can be a useful tool for this. My third tip is to just experiment and try different shoes. So a great example here is the Nike Metcon. This is a very popular model and popular shoe line in the CrossFit and cross-training world. I constantly have lifters and athletes reach out and say, oh, I'm getting heel slip in my model and I've sized up, I've sized down, what do I do? More than likely, you just don't have the foot anatomy that aligns with the last that Nike has used in the shoe. So having the cognitive dissonance to kind of separate and not be married to any one style of footwear can be a really useful tool to experiment with different shoes to find a model that actually fits your foot correctly, as opposed to trying to fit a round peg into a square hole. As opposed to trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. So if you've ever had shoes with this extra eyelet back here, this is for heel lock, or also known as lace lock. So how you do this is you are going to put your shoe in here. And this is for anybody who may be experiencing heel slip in their models. This can be a really useful tool to try. So you're going to tighten up your shoe as normal. Then what you are going to do is you are going to take lace here, go into this back hole. You're going to pull this through a little bit, creating a little loop here. I like to leave like probably about a thumb's length there with the loop. I'll do the same thing on the opposing side here. And then what you are going to do is once you have these loops, you are then going to take this right side, go through the left loop. You're going to take the left side, go through the right loop. And what you are going to do then is pull tight here, pull tight, and you do not want to have loops left over. So basically, you don't want to tie up the shoe and have this left. You want to be able to pull this tight, and then you'll tie your shoe as normal. And in theory, what is going to happen here is you're going to get a little bit more surface area with the laces up here on the tongue and provide you with a more lockdown, tight fit with the shoe, which should help prevent more friction or heel slip in the model. The second way you can deal with heel slip if you have this lace lock eyelet back here or heel lock eyelet is instead of just doing the looping process, you could just avoid that whole first eyelet here and go to the back eyelet. So boom, go to that back eyelet and we'll tighten up and tie as normal. This is a useful tool for anybody who doesn't want to have to go through that process of lace locking with those loops in our first method, but it may not work for every style of shoe. And you might not like that actually this comes up over, because at times it can in certain models that have like a more pronounced midfoot here, especially with that top eyelet construction going into the boot. So just food for thought, those are two ways you can navigate heel slip if you have that additional eyelet back here for heel lock or lace lock. All right, guys, that wraps up this video on heel slip. If you have any questions on this topic, hit me in the comments below or reach out to me personally. And as always, drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel. See ya.